Griswold, where do you think you're going to put a tree that big? Send over and I'll show you.
Cool. We are on, I believe. So thank you, Austin. If you can hear me, let me know. Yeah, I guess let me know if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome. Well, it's very exciting to have you on. This is the first time we have someone from the Aptos Foundation, Aptos Labs team. I guess whichever one, maybe you can also give us some details on that, on how that works. But yeah, excited to have someone from Aptos here for the first time. Most people join over time, so this is definitely one of the most hyped up ones we'll have. So we'll see how many folks can join, and a lot of people watch the replay too. So yeah, we can give it a few more minutes. Yeah, if you can also, if possible, join on Twitter. Just turn the volume all the way down. It'll let your followers on Twitter also know you're on a space. But yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll kick it off. Everyone, please enjoy the holiday music. All right, let's kick it off. So yeah, Austin, thank you for joining us today. Would love to learn more about you and you know how you got interested in crypto, what your journey was like that led you here, and yeah, sort of like how you know how you landed on Aptos, and maybe also share with folks more about Aptos from your perspective as well. I think that would be yeah super useful.
Yeah, sure. Also, I love the Christmas music. um, hey, hey everyone. My name's Austin, and I help run ecosystem for Aptos. So I've been with the company for about 5 or 6 years now. And prior to Aptos, I actually spent most of my career at Solana, running community marketing and ecosystem for them. So helping scale up the community and marketing that you see at Solana today. So, I've been in the protocol level of blockchain and crypto for about 4.5, 5 years now. And I think I was really drawn to that level of the stack because it seemed to be where I was able to make the largest impact on a wide scale set of things. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey for sure. And so, I'm sure a lot of people here are familiar with it, but Aptos is essentially a recently launched L1 network that was built primarily by a lot of the ex-Meta folks that were working on the project when it was at Facebook and then later shut down. What happened was Mo and Avery, who were the business and the tech leads of the projects, were like, absolutely not. We fundamentally believe in what's going on here. And so they went out, raised some capital, took the open source code, and launched Aptos from that. And Aptos has been live for about 8 weeks now, and within those 8 weeks, we've seen 50 plus projects launch across NFT, DeFi. We're starting to see stuff blossom in the metaverse and gaming space as well. And then we recently just hit a TVL all-time high, I believe, yesterday at like 53 or 54 million, which, relative to some of these other networks that have been around for years, is not massive. But what that tells me is that there's continued strength and continued support and continued belief in the network. And we're coming out here and we're optimizing to be the most efficient, friendliest blockchain network there is available. And so far, we had 100% uptime. We haven't had any real issues, and we're continuing to ship a robust set of products and tools to continue growing and scaling Aptos.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty crazy that you've been in this space for like for so long. Kind of curious to hear what some of your favorite moments have been throughout that time, and you know what are some of the learnings there that you think are applicable to growing out those. I think drop for a sec. Okay, you're back. Sorry. Uh, did you catch? I'll repeat the question. Yeah, it's crazy that you've been on for so long, and yeah, curious to hear what were some of your favorite moments and learnings, and how that can be applied to growing out those this nascent ecosystem.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. I think just look at it first and foremost, anyone that is actively building in the markets right now, especially anyone that's actively building in a new market, is playing on hard mode. I mean, these conditions undeniably make things more challenging. But what that tells me is that anyone who is actively building within this environment is around for the right reasons. And so the fact that we've been able to have such a strong developer community form around the network, such a strong set of NFT projects and builders and creators just come around for a common goal here and utilizing the Aptos network as their L1 of choice to pursue that endeavor just tells me that the ambition and the ambition strength of these people is going to be unmatched when conditions turn around. And so we have just been up to this date. Like I said, we've only been live for about 8 weeks now. We've been hyper focused on one, just optimizations and uptime, making sure the network is fast, efficient, and stays up, which, to date hasn't been even the slightest bit of a problem, but really also just frameworks and tooling. And so coming from Solana, a lot of our ethos there was about, quote, eating glass. And the dev experience for onboarding wasn't incredibly friendly. Rust was an incredible language, and it was a massive improvement on what was already existing, in my opinion. But the overall experience wasn't great, and so we took a lot of learnings from that, and we are working to make Aptos as easy to build on as possible. And what that means is that we're hyper focused on our documentation, trying to make that as easy to read and easy to follow as possible. SDKs, APIs, so that way anyone could just plug right in and start shipping what they need to. And overall, just working on making sure that folks can jump in, learn Move, and start utilizing it for the incredible language that it is as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. If I fully understand, it's like building those first foundations so we can onboard a lot of builders, developers, and then the users will follow on top of these apps that are being built. And definitely hear you out that the current market conditions aren't making it super beneficial, and potentially also for teams looking for investments. It's to build or to have at least runway to build. It's definitely hard market conditions, but these themes seem cyclical. And even here in this time, it seems like mostly macroeconomic conditions that are pushing down crypto. Obviously, a lot of black swan events have happened the last year with Terra, FTX, etc. But the fact that even Bitcoin is still above 15, 18,000, it's somewhat promising, I suppose. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to hear more about maybe what were some of your best learnings from growing Solana. What really worked, and then how that's being applied here. So I'm hearing better tooling, better infrastructure. I guess on the community side as well, like what especially on the NFT front, the Solana community seems to be really strong and passionate. So yeah, kind of curious to hear. You had an integral part in growing that. Kind of curious to hear your thoughts on what worked really well there, and how that's being applied, or how you're applying that here.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately I didn't do anything. I think it comes down to community, whether it's the developer community or the user community. The community is the absolute cornerstone and foundation for any successful project. And so when you look at the NFT ecosystem on Solana, it has been around for a year and a half, coming up on almost 2 years now. And so it's been around for a while, and it launched during a time of the NFT craze. And so, not to divert too much here, but one really interesting thing about Aptos that has been fascinating for myself and a handful of others to explore is that Aptos is really the first network to launch since NFTs were a thing. So when we look at Ethereum, we look at Solana, we look at Avalanche, Polygon. These networks were all around when NFTs took off, and so they did that massive pivot from DeFi to NFTs, where previous to NFTs they were almost all exclusively focused on DeFi with the sprinkle of metaverse in there, but they made a pivot. And so being launched after NFTs were around allowed us the opportunity to take a lot of the learnings from these previous projects and implement them in practice as we are thinking about the toolings and frameworks and just general way that we want people to interface with NFTs. Just like anything, it just takes time and it's the long game. Being 8 weeks in, I don't expect us to be coming in and being toe to toe with some of these networks, but like give us a little more time. And I think that we're going to see the way that the ecosystem and the community grows around Aptos and Aptos NFTs is going to be compounded aggressively relative to what we've seen with other networks. And so when I think about it, and when a lot of the other incredible people that I've worked with throughout my career thought about it, is really just community. It's like, what can we do to empower the people that are actually building on the network to the people that are actually using the network, and talking to them directly, learning from them and implementing that. I think it sounds incredibly simple, but in practice it becomes incredibly challenging because, building a product in general is a really hard endeavor, but building a product on a decentralized network is just really hard. And so, trying to do all of that, maintain a roadmap, maintain a vision, while also simultaneously being in constant contact with your community and implementing their suggestions in real time is hard. And I think it's something that all networks in general are actively working on improving.
Nice, yeah, and would love to hear more, maybe on like some specific projects on Solana that you think the Aptos community can really learn from, on how they manage their community and bootstrap, and also like a interesting dichotomy that I see is like very large projects. I think Aptos did a really good job signing on Metapixel, for example, and what that impact is going to be compared to some of the grassroots projects. I believe on Solana as well, there's some really large investments into, for example, metaverses. I'm forgetting the name of the one right now that's like space themed, but that's going to grow and bring on a set of users compared to something like the Solana monkey business, which is kind of grassroots. So kind of curious to hear your perspective on how those two bring on board adoption and the comparables to Aptos. And yeah, maybe talk a little bit more about the Metapixel partnership y'all sign, and I recently talked to Joseph there, so really excited about what they're bringing on to.
Yeah, I think the project on Solana you're probably thinking about was Star Atlas.
Yeah.
Potentially. Okay, yeah. Star Atlas is amazing. Shout out Pablo. They're great people. But yeah, I think, just to be clear, my focus is definitely more on the ecosystem side of things. We have an incredible partnerships team that focuses on some of the larger things, like what you would consider nPixel to be, which, that and alone is an incredible testimony to the network that this massive gaming company in Korea, like one of the largest, chose Aptos as its network to engage with and start to launch its Web3 based games. Just being so early on, like that's huge. So, everyone that worked on that across the Aptos and Metapixel team were just incredible. And it was really, really cool to see that officially come to light. There's not much more I can say on it aside from that, but I would say just keep an eye out. We're putting out as frequent information updates about it as we can. And then, when you look at the ecosystem, I mean, my firm belief in this isn't what Aptos in general might believe, but it's just like these ecosystem projects and these grassroots projects and these projects of just a couple of builders that are just coming together somewhere to actually ship are some of the most impactful, if not the most impactful people in a network. Like these developers that are sacrificing a year or two of their life to go post up in a small office with 5 or 6 other people and just ship a vision out of nothing are the people that start to shape the ethos and the vibe of a network. Those are the ones that really, really move the needle because they're the ones that are putting their heart and soul into it. And so I'm super familiar with the Solana Monkey business people. I think they're a really cool one to look at. The DAO officially runs it now. So I think specifically in that sense, anyone that is interested in DAOs and is currently engaged with Aptos, we have some stuff coming for you soon, so keep an eye out there. We've been actively working on that, which is really exciting. But just taking a look at how a decentralized organization can actually operate like a real project or a real business like that, where the original creators no longer want to be involved. There's stuff, but now the DAO runs it and it runs quite well. And I think that's been an amazing example of how people can gather behind these profile pictures, these projects, find commonalities, find shared interests, and just make really strong bonds, connections, and friendships. Obviously, I think the one that makes the most sense to take a look at is DGods and Dead Gods Mutes. I think Frank and team have done an incredible job with that. I don't talk to Frank super often, but like we have talked a few times in the early days of the projects, and I think his approach of treating it like a community making business and shipping features, shipping products, and really taking it incredibly seriously is what's helped them scale to where they're at today. DGods when it first launched, just like many of the successful NFT projects we see today, didn't do very well. You look at things and a lot of these projects took 3, 4, 5 months to really take off. And this is actually something that I've echoed to a lot of the Aptos NFT community is like, hey guys, like just because something doesn't pop immediately doesn't mean it's not going to. What brings people in is when they see a founder and they see a team shipping and truly believing in what they're doing. And that's what makes people want to get in, invest in your project and get involved. And so I think the team at Dust Labs and DGods and all that have done an incredible job, constantly shipping features, shipping updates, holding events, creating spaces for people to gather around, and just ultimately having this vision, this shared vision that allows anyone who holds a DGod to be involved with it. And really that's what NFTs, or at least the profile picture ones, stand for me. It's like when you purchase that, you're doing that. I think there's a speculative aspect to it, but like you're doing it because you fundamentally believe in what that project represents and what that project stands for. And it's something that you want to be involved with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and unfortunately, I do think a lot of the end users just see kind of like the value, and whether there was some return on the value that they put into the mint, and definitely launching in a bear market is not, I guess, conducive to that. But
Yes.
over time, yeah, over time, hopefully, just continuing to grind and building will accrue value to what these projects are doing. And but it's kind of hard too, because these NFT projects as well, at least the ones that I know, this is kind of like a side hustle. It's not really like a sustainable business for them to go full time onto being NFT projects. I don't know if the DGOTS youths have reached that. Definitely, like if you look at Yuga Labs, they definitely made it into a sustainable business. But starting from the grassroots, it seems to be like a part time endeavor. And it does take a lot of time and resources invested. Paying devs to build things for these things to accrue the community and value that people are looking for it, or even like doing this, right? Like it takes time to go in and spend some time on a live stream. And if someone's like side job is it, then it definitely makes it a lot harder. So hopefully, yeah, we see some of these projects continuing to build and being able to sustain, businesses around the NFTs that they're creating, so they can actually, dedicate their passion and art to it. Yeah, just some thoughts there. Like especially for an NFT project, if they're not able to collect funds at the beginning through their mint, then it's really really hard to continue to build and give back to their communities. But yeah,
Yeah,
kind
and
of.
I
Oh yeah.
mean, I think there's a separation there of taking something seriously and shipping and it being a full-time job. I don't know if it necessarily has to be both. I think, if you can still do it part-time, like I don't think anyone expects these people to come in and completely forego a full-time job, not make money and just run this. But I do think that it's a matter of how they treat it and how they handle things. And so I think during these bear conditions, what we're seeing is that teams are not raising as much capital. That's to be expected. I think the name of the game across any project, whether it be an NFT, crypto, or just tech in general, is in these conditions is runway and sustainability. And I think what that means is being able to take the capital you have, preserve it, and then act in a fiscally efficient way navigating these conditions. Because when the bull does kick back on, and it inevitably does, I think if we look historically at the charts, I don't trade, just to preface things, like at all. I'm like the most boring crypto person there is. But when we look at stuff, this is the third red year in the history of Bitcoin. The other two, there was one that had a higher drop and there was one that had a slightly lower drop. But over the course of the history of crypto, like we've only seen Bitcoin have three red years, and traditionally after that, things do well. This isn't advice, this is suggestion, but it's just like looking at the chart for what it is. What that tells me is the people that are able to, sustain capital, keep going during these conditions will have opportunity, hopefully in the future, the near future, to be able to really double down on things and be ready for when that storm kicks in, and then hopefully make it a full-time job if that's what they want. I think not everyone wants that either. So I think it all depends on what they're trying to get out of the project and what they're putting into the project. And it'll change, it won't be the same for everyone, and I think that's okay. But yeah, the DGOTS team and all of that, like they were running dead gods, or they were running DGOTS out of like a tiny apartment with like 4 or 5 people for the first couple of months. And then come a year and a half later, they raised $8 million for Dust Labs. So I think a lot of that's just a testimony and a great roadmap for what can happen for NFT projects and for NFT project founders that truly want to get in the mix.
Yeah, definitely, and it's that conviction to continue moving forward. Potentially, that even makes the project even better, given that it was able to
Yep,
succeed through these hard times. And maybe
I
even going
agree.
back, yeah, and maybe even going back to your earlier point of these things being decentralized communities, or maybe being run as DAOs. We at Pontem, we feel like we have some form of like moral responsibility to build on top of these NFT projects that have garnered significant traction in communities and engagement. For example, we're building in boosted rewards for our farms for allowing folks to create farms with NFT collections that can be whitelisted to have boosted rewards as a way to add utility to a set of NFT projects that are in the community. So in that regard, we're relatively, I guess, funded compared to these NFT projects. So we can dedicate some dev resources to make sure that we're supporting the community. And it's not something that they, commissioned us to do or even asked us to do. But we think it's important to, just kind of like continue to build up the ecosystem in a way that's supportive where we can. And as hopefully, these NFT projects will continue building and over time we'll be able to garner their own resources, and they already are building projects, and you'll get to see some of the intersections, like for example, some of the taverns that the brothers have been building for leveling up their NFTs, like that can be a primitive that then applies to a higher level NFT can earn even more boosted rewards and have more voting power on some of the protocols that we're building. So it's like that mentality of helping each other potentially can also be useful during these
and I mean, I'm sure your community already knows it because that's where we're at, but like the Pontem team has just been absolutely incredible. Like you guys have been going above and beyond and have been an absolute pleasure to work with. So I think it can't be understated the amount of impact that you guys have had on the network for sure.
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to see some of these NFT projects as well flourish. Also with DeFi as Aptos gains even more traction in the future. And hopefully we come out into the next bull market ready to collect and garner all that value.
It just takes time. I know no one wants to hear that, but it just takes time.
Yeah, definitely. And potentially also like some form of killer application as well seems to drive a lot of attention or utility. So as we look across crypto right now, after the implosion of FTX, one that seems to have really taken off, given that now there's a gap, is GMX specifically, and them on Arbitrum allowing people to take essentially perpetual positions on some of the biggest assets like ETH, Bitcoin, seems to have really taken off. I think for Solana NFTs, like really cheap, low transactions, really helped it take off. And I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on what potentially could be the next killer app, and how maybe that could be built on Aptos.
Yeah, I would say I don't want to turn this back around on you, but like from your experience of engaging with the network, I think you've been pretty involved from the start. Are there any areas in particular as you're interfacing with the community and interfacing with teams that are extra exciting to you?
So what we're currently researching is how to make the experience of a centralized exchange available for decentralized apps, and that includes spot trading, perpetuals, loans, and we're actually working with a few of the other DeFi protocols to see how we can create like a very consolidated and streamlined user experience for accessing all these. And then Aptos as a vehicle allows us to have like really low transaction fees, really high throughput for these applications. So hopefully they can compete against like a Binance, and people can custody their own keys. So that's kind of what I'm eyeing. It's very, very hard to build kind of like a quote unquote super app or DeFi super app on your own. And it's probably not super safe either to have like a central point of failure. So how do we best compose all the emerging apps that are building on Aptos in a way that, for example, if on Ethereum from the very onset, Maker, Aave, Uniswap all work together to, for example, have really low fees and in linked use cases, have consolidated front end so people can link these use cases more easily. Like what would that look like if they had, from the beginning, we're working together. So I guess they're dropping some alpha for folks, but that's definitely what we're looking at, and how do we build this consolidated user experience for like a DeFi super app that makes best use of Aptos high throughput and low transaction costs.
Yeah, I don't even think I was aware of that. So that is serious alpha for everyone listening here. No, that's amazing. And I think taking that slightly adjacent when I look at it is just what do people need and what do people want? And I think your instinct, I would echo that your instinct of understand that, after the FTX implosion, a lot of people are now hesitant to trust these centralized exchanges with their assets. I can say I didn't realize personally how many people were using FTX as like a bank that
Yeah.
when things went down were like heavily impacted. Like I had no idea that people were utilizing these exchanges as like their bank. And so I think creating infrastructure and creating products that allow people to continue utilizing blockchain rails as their main banking system, but without putting them at the mercy or the risk of malicious actors is where decentralized exchanges come into play, like improved self-custody options, easier on-ramps and off-ramps, and just in general, trying to keep as many things on decentralized rails as possible that don't put us at the mercy of these actors. Because ultimately, like crypto worked fine during the FTX implosion. It was, and during the past year, you look at Aave, you look at MakerLink, these protocols have all been fine because they have adequate risk management protocols, double protocols there, but they have adequate risk management protocols implemented on the smart contract layer, which just allows them, like it's a trustless system. So it's like they can trust something, but in order to interface with it, they have to follow the instructions, and the instructions they're in place to keep the product safe and to keep the community safe. And this is not what we saw with some of the things that went wrong early this year. It was mostly Web2 incumbents that had these issues. And so, I'm excited for whatever the next wave of builders right now that are acting along on Aptos are going to create and ship here in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you just sparked an idea actually. So like a lot of people were using yeah, a lot of people were using FTX and BlockFi and all these as like bank accounts because they were earning like quote unquote relatively safe yields. But as we knew, those were backed by on collateralized or under collateralized loans. So not safe, but you can still earn relatively safe yields on DeFi. If you go on Aave, if you link, for example, your staked ETH and take out credit on it, you could then also provide liquidity with that, and earn like real yields, not just emission rewards. So I recently, recently I've seen some projects have relatively big fundraisers on these like yield vaults that are like structured yield products, I guess, that use all of DeFi to give people actual yield. So I think coupling that potentially with what I was saying could potentially also be part of this, where people don't even have to think about I'm depositing my USDC or I'm depositing my ETH or Aptos. And I just want it to not get diluted, or I just want to get some form of yield that I can generally trust. And if it's all done on chain, then there's no rehypothecation, and definitely relatively safer. So that could potentially also be another killer app. So like a Yearn, but with structured products that actually generate real yield, not just farming emission rewards. I think could potentially also do really well right now.
Yes, and I think, yeah, I would love that. I think making that as simple as possible, because 98% of people don't even understand what structured products are, and so asking them to interface with them, I feel like starts going into like that territory of comfortability. I think it's just in general we need to still continue simplifying a lot of these more complicated financial instruments that can really be utilized for like incredible purposes, but just people don't understand it, and so they don't engage with it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even like 2 points where we're using traditional financial products, so like cash carried puts, as like a common strategy for quote unquote yield farming. But then crypto itself opens up new opportunities that weren't even like previously possible or didn't even exist. Like for example, provisioning liquidity on AMM. So how do you link all these, and yeah, to your point, make it super simple where someone just looks at a vault or looks at a place where they deposit and they can see like real APYs that they're earning. And yeah, have that be as simple as it was to deposit onto like an FTX and get 8%, 5%, or a BlockFi and get 6%. Except here, everything is auditable. You can have a community around that looks at these strategies, make sure that they're safe. They're probably not going to be fixed rates. They're going to be variable based on usage. But at least it's something that's sustainable and also is useful for continuing to maintain and drive the economy that's underlying. So yeah, I think that would probably do really well. I don't think I've seen a team on Aptos building this yet. So potentially something to look out for.
Yeah, and I think anyone that's a builder that's listening, like, if you're interested in building this stuff or you are actively building on this stuff, like, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Myself and a handful of people on my team are always down and willing to chat with anyone.
Yeah, definitely. I guess along those lines, what are some of the ones that you thought were going to do really well and potentially didn't do as well, based on past experiences, or maybe some that surprised you that you didn't think were going to do well and ended up doing really well, like some of these projects?
I'm going to give a really boring answer here, and I apologize, but I think it's just too early to really decide anything here. I think because of market conditions, because of when we launch, it's just way too early to make any concrete decisions around how something is performing. But I've been adequately surprised with everything in general. If I'm being honest, I think just how quickly things formed. If I had to pick one thing, I would say it's the wallet infrastructure. I think it's been really incredible to see such a robust wallet infrastructure come into play. If we look at it, we within the first month of the network being live had over 1 million cumulative wallet downloads. I think we're up to like 1.5 million now. And these are things that took other networks a year or two to get to.
Yeah, along those lines, I'm excited potentially around the account abstraction. I know our team was doing a little bit of research into that and some of the opportunities
Yep.
yeah, that could open up. So potentially, yeah, that could be something that yeah, within Aptos we can also move the needle on. That seems to be also doing really relatively well and allows for a lot of use cases, like for example, delegating to others or doing
Yep.
more easily account recovery. So
Yep.
yeah, a lot of this stuff hopefully takes off. One that I personally think was kind of interesting and maybe worth thinking about is the hype that was driven around Olympus DAO. So people love to hate on Ohm and Olympus DAO. But I actually think once you strip away the sort of like pyramid scheme that existed in people just holding and then minting more coins to give to new people coming in, the idea of having like a DAO that accrues a treasury of assets and then they have like a coin that is backed by that treasury of assets sounds a lot like kind of like Maker or just a stable coin, but that isn't pegged specifically to the US dollar, which I think was super interesting actually, because maybe people want to hold purchasing power in crypto as opposed to the US dollar. So that was one that I was surprised like kind of took off, and I actually don't know where it's at now, but yeah, just kind of hear your thoughts. Those were like kind of wild experiments. I don't know if
Yes.
they'll come back. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I played around with a good majority of these that came around during I guess that was like the 5 timer. This would have been what, like a year or so ago from today. And that was really big, maybe like a year and a couple of months. I think experimentation is important. I think we need people who are actively experimenting and trying new things out, because that's how we move industries forward. That's how we, as a community, continue pushing the boundaries and pushing the limits of what blockchain can truly be. Now, with that in mind, though, I think anyone that's actively engaging with any of these just needs to do so with extreme caution.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
it's, just be careful.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something I also think about, because when you're building technology, at least the ethos has been to move fast, break things, learn from those mistakes, and then get back up and continue building. However, in crypto, there's a lot of value and real money at stake. So it's kind of hard to, to build with that ethos. And it's maybe, I would argue even irresponsible. Although, some, and Andre as well has been kind of criticized for this of like, testing in production and shipping stuff really quickly to seeing how it works. But yeah, this is real money that's at stake. So, builders have this responsibility to, be relatively conservative in what they're launching. But I do think there could be potentially some compromise in making like an experimentation sandbox that does have real value, but maybe has a ton of guardrails to protect people. So this idea is something we've been playing around and thinking with. Would love to hear your perspective on it, I guess now. But you might be familiar with Kusama on Polkadot and it being like a canary network for Polkadot. I think that was okay. It was like relatively well implemented, but I think you could go a step further of making something that's like maybe way more centralized. So having procedures in place, for example, for rollbacks. Like if there is a hack, potentially setting certain parameters so that the validators can come together and say like, okay, if this actually happened and it was malintention, then we could roll back transactions and give people back their money. There could also be like an insurance fund, for example, that's like baked into the protocol, where like instead of like really high gas fees, or there is really high gas fees, but those gas fees go towards like an insurance protocol where if something does break or inevitably does break, then users can be made whole or partly whole. But having this be like a completely separate environment from anything that has even more value connected, I think could also be prudent, given that as I mentioned, you could potentially roll back transactions. You could like close the exits to bridges, etc. But then really just honestly have this place where people can just launch crazy ideas and see if it works. And if it works, or some versions or parts of it or features of it work, then how do you make that into something that's more sustainable? I think that's something that potentially is missing or making people hesitant to really like push the boundaries on what's possible. But yeah, kind of curious to hear your
I'd be
thoughts.
curious to hear I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on why you think the responsibility is always pushed onto the devs. Like why do the devs have to be incredibly cautious here? I guess, do you think him saying that it is like test code is not enough? I guess I'd be curious to hear from like your perspective.
Yeah, I think well, it's almost like the Frankenstein analogy, where Dr. Frankenstein is potentially the monster, even though the monster is the monster. Whereas like there is, even though you can have full disclosures and you can push something out and tell people like, hey, don't risk more than you can. People will inevitably do it, and I think as a creator, you have a responsibility for what you created. So maybe, I mean, this is my own personal opinion, but I think there is some form of responsibility, even if these things do take a life on their own, and if built correctly, they should take a life on their own, right? There shouldn't be any one central point of failure like a dev to be able to shut it down or to do anything malicious with it. But I do think there is a sense of responsibility of Dr. Frankenstein to not build a monster that can destroy society.
Yeah, solid. That's a great answer.
Yeah, I mean it's like the ethics of it definitely are a conundrum, right? Like is Satoshi responsible for what he's built? I would argue at this point no, because it's reached a point of decentralization where Bitcoin can live on without Satoshi being around. But even on Ethereum, I think Vitalik understands also like the weight that his words carry, and what recommendations he makes for the network to go forward, and even on the roadmap itself. Like I think he's very cognizant of whatever he says is also like very impactful into the direction of the project. So yeah, I think it's important for original creators to like have a sense of like more responsibility, because you can tell people all you want that don't put more money that you can risk, but inevitably if that type of culture also isn't like super conducive to long-term value, not to like kind of like shit on anybody, but I think Phantom unfortunately has gotten this like negative reputation for like rugs, or kind of like Ponzi tokenomic projects where people come in, kind of like pump and dump, farm these like high inflationary coins, and then there's obviously going to be losers at the end of that. And I think Phantom generally as an ecosystem has taken a hit for that, and maybe due to the ethos that Andre kind of unfortunately Frankenstein of saying, hey, ship, test and prod, be an ape, whatever.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
but
No, I would agree with all of that. I would agree with all of that. I think there's a moral responsibility of these creators. I think it just gets into a philosophical discussion really quickly. So it's hard to say if there's truly a right or wrong here.
yeah, that's where I think maybe just that separation where, hey, this thing specifically is going to be purpose built for testing these crazy ideas, and it is going to be super dangerous, and potentially we could have some some mechanisms in place to protect users from the repercussions of it. Could be a good middle point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess to that extent, I guess how do you think about it as you're looking at projects and how they're building, and what kind of culture should be fostered on Aptos? Yeah, kind of curious to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think just to give a sound check here, I do have to run in a moment, but let me try and elaborate this one as much as possible because I think that's a phenomenal question. So I think when I look at it personally, when we're talking and engaging with teams, I think really getting to know the founding team members and the people that are going to be, to quote, the face of the community or the face of the project is imperative. I think getting to know these people on a personal level, I think helps really showcase what they stand for, how we plan on seeing them act within the project, their integrity, their track record, and all of that, and just getting to know the details that are outside of just strictly like what are you shipping. It's kind of like, what do you care about as a human, like what's important to you, where do you put your focus, where do you spend your free time, like just what do you like to do. And getting to understand these things typically then shows us the direction we foresee these people taking. And I think this doesn't mean that people necessarily have to dox. I've actually seen a handful of incredibly successful projects launch with undoxed founders. I know the meta around doxing is always in flux, but for me, it's really just looking at the values of the people that are building the project and getting a sense of if we plan on seeing them put those values or push those values onto the project that they're building, because ultimately it will happen. There's going to be someone who's like a community leader who's going to start to shape how the community acts, forms, treats people, and like the general vibe of the project, and that will attract more people of that nature. And I for me, it's important that we create within Aptos an open, welcoming, engaging environment where I want anyone to feel comfortable just to jump in and ask questions or start shipping and get feedback and be able to work collaboratively with other people in the network to just grow something really, really cool. So for us, we're really taking the approach of openness and transparency and trying to create like a beautiful, easy-ish experience for anyone just to jump in and get involved immediately. And I know I keep saying this, but just like it takes time. We have a lot of incredible things in motion. We've already seen a lot of incredible things happen, but all of this stuff just takes time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess any particular projects or any particular maybe NFT or DeFi projects that you're excited about that you feel live or live these values that you're mentioning.
Oh man, this gets tricky because no matter what I say, I always get like 20 DMs to people that disagree. Let's see. I just think the Aptos NFT community as a whole, without calling out any specific project, I think seeing a little bit behind the scenes, it's been incredible to watch how a lot of the major NFT projects are like actively collaborating and working together. Like they're helping each other out. They're sometimes like sharing dev resources when people need it. Like they're just really engaged and it's become like a little family. Um, And for me, that's been really cool to see. I think, that doesn't mean I necessarily endorse or agree with everything that every project does, but it's been incredible watching all these projects come together to support the growth.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. And I know behind the scenes you're also working to help out or boost a lot of these projects of how they can work together. Um, so yeah, maybe curious to hear kind of like your vision for that. What does that look like for Aptos to support the teams that represent the values that you want to see, represent Aptos?
Um,
I think you might have gone on mute. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's up to the projects. Like we want to provide support, but we don't want to drive anything. And so ultimately, it's up to the team. It really is. But we just do what we can to help push people in the direction of the values that are important to us.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess any specifics, maybe like any events that you're planning or any, yeah, I guess any specifics that maybe people in the community that are also early on in their journey can look forward to and getting support from Aptos.
Yeah, I think to kind of close things out before I have to run, I would say just if you're a community member just looking to get involved and learn more about Aptos, like check out the Twitter, check out the Discord, like jump in there, the Telegram. The channels are incredibly welcoming. We have a handful of really awesome CMs that will be more than happy to direct you to where you need to go and answer any questions. And I think if you are looking to start developing on Aptos, like dive into the docs, but also dive into the Discord. We have specific channels for developers. We have an incredible docs team that is working day and night to make the docs as easy to follow as possible. And don't hesitate to reach out to myself or anyone on the team. Like I know even like Avery and Mo still answer DMs pretty religiously, which is wild. But they're still in there talking to people, answering questions, and we have a handful of the core engineering team that helps monitor the Discord occasionally as well. That will be happy to help with any questions you have. So I would say really just jump in and start getting involved, and there will be people within all of the channels that will be happy to help guide you in the right direction.
Cool. Um, okay, I know we're running on time. So definitely don't want to hold you up, but one question we do ask here religiously, and just to get your perspective on is what is your opinion on aliens and whether they're here or not, and whether they even exist?
Oh, see, now we're getting to the good questions. Okay. No, I for sure believe in aliens. I think they're real. Like they have to be. Like we're for sure not the only like species that's living within the universe. Like it's uncomprehensibly large. There's like tons of other stuff out there, and I'm sure they visited us. Look at my profile picture.
Yeah, they could be among us right now, even in the audience. Um, well, awesome, Austin. Thank you for the time. Really happy to have you here. Looking forward to having you on again soon, and yeah, have some great holidays, and look forward to doing this again.
Thank you, Alejo. And yeah, again, thanks for everything you do for the community. You and the entire Pontem team are incredible. So we're super grateful to have y'all as part of the ecosystem and really leading the charge here with a lot of stuff. And thanks for everyone in the audience for listening. If anyone's got any more questions, just shoot me a DM and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. And everyone have a great Christmas
Awesome.
or
Thank you.
happy holidays if you don't celebrate. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.